Thank you very much. Kieran Hartley, Ireland South candidate for the upcoming election. I'm a member of the Fianna Fáil party. I got involved in environmental issues back in the early 90s when I was a member of Untashka. I was involved in local organisations and we were also involved in the Cumra clean-up scheme as a young person. I moved from there into, I built a passive aerated house and was involved with Sustainable Energy Ireland when they were doing the first wood chip condensing boiler was commissioned within my house. I was one of the first people in the country to buy and to drive a bioethanol car. It was great to buy, great to drive, hard to get rid of and sell after the Greens left power. I then became very involved in the environmental issues as late as last year when I was one of the first people in the country to realise what Airgrid were trying to do to this country. I started one of the first campaigns to stop the pylons and the wind farms proliferation of our country. And I started that because I first realised it was an attack on our countryside, and I then quickly realised that our energy policy was completely wrong, and that as a country we needed to move forward with green initiatives that were friendly to the environment and sustainable with the environment, which our current NREAP is not. And as recently as yesterday, you may have seen Minister Passrabbit has announced that he wants an open submission for how we will produce our energy going forward. I welcome that, but I think we have to go further. We need a moratorium on all projects in this country until such time as we've assessed our NREAP, our needs for energy going forward and our consumption. And we have to get this right, because we are about to go down a road within Europe where we are sticking to our climate change targets, but our partners in China and Russia, especially in China, are building a coal power plant per month to meet their energy demands, while we are penalising European citizens to meet ours. This has to be addressed, and we need a world, if it is the Kyoto Agreement, whatever it is going forward, that everybody is in agreement and everybody participates. Because if we don't, we will be in a position that we will be meeting our targets, but nobody else will. European law in the main comes from Europe. I believe that Europe must lead in the fight against climate change. We must ensure that the EU supports sustainability, renewable energy policies at a European level. The EU must also ensure that our international partners keep their commitment to reduce the cause of climate change internationally also. If elected, I intend to focus on the development of sustainable, renewable alternatives to fossil fuels. I will support policies which reduce European dependency on outside energy resources. The EU must pursue policies which increase energy security, sustainability within the Union. We need a Union energy policy which shields Europe from stealing internal policies across who use energy resources as a political tool, particularly laws to focus. The one that I would be very interested in is the Aarhus Agreement that was brought in. The Aarhus Agreement was brought in after the Lisbon Treaty, and it gives anything to do with the environment. If a government has produced a policy paper, it's written into law. As we now know, Ireland is in abuse of this and is not attaining and adhering to the EU Aarhus law. It is in breach of that. That would be my first law. How they broke that law is when they drew up the pylon energy debate, or the pylon Grid 25, they did not allow communities to be part of decision making, and they blocked out the people that are directly affected. I have worked in conjunction with Pat Swords, who has taken this to European law and has won this in law and has enshrined it in the Irish Constitution. Ireland is still breaking EU law by not bringing in mapping and digital mapping of Ireland that has to be used for any environmental project that is proposed for this country. We still, out of the 28 countries in Europe, are the only country that do not have this done. And this is important that it is brought in. Thank you. The 2030 target, 55%, I think we have to be very careful about selecting a figure. We need to see how that has costed, what it amounts to, and what other countries are doing. We saw what happened with the green energy targets of 2020 when it started off at 16%, then it was driven to 33%, and then brought the 40% target. 40% target achieved by wind is unsustainable, and no grid can support that. We have to be very, very careful. ESA would seek the highest reduction in greenhouse gases tariff available, but it has to be done in conjunction with our European partners. It has to be. We can't carry the burden. We want to be at the front, but we can't carry the burden when other countries are ignoring us. The 2030 targets, I think at this moment, I was just saying it here, it says 55%. I thought it was reduced to 26% recently, because our electricity prices were high, driven by multinationals. We need to have an honest and open and very frank debate about how we are going to produce our own energy within this country. And we need to have that now. We cannot go down the road, as I said earlier on, using renewables as a green target of unsustainable and not varying power such as solar, such as wind. We have to have a sustained power source within this country, such as biomass, that can be run at the same as a fossil fuel power plant. We have to have a sustainable energy. Wind, as we know, is variant, solar is variant. So for every megawatt generated by wind, you must have a fossil fuel plant or gas cycling plant, such as Whitegate out the road, on idle or on standby. So that equates to every rotation of a wind turbine equates to 1 megawatt is generated by fossil fuel. So we have to move away from that and our dependency upon our fossil fuel. Plus, when you look at a wind turbine, they're supposed to be sustainable and they're supposed to be green. Well, when they're harvested out of the ground in China, and there's 3 transported per ship to Ireland, and then we have a situation that they go into a base of 150 lorry loads of concrete, they're not very sustainable. So we need to look at that to address a realistic 55% target. Thank you. The decline seen in biodiversity is a very serious issue, with so many habitats in bad condition and species in very poor condition. Decline in biodiversity has a very worrying and obvious implementation on our overall ecosystems, and indeed our ability to live and work sustainably. The knock-on effects through the food chain are already being felt. With habitats being encroached upon by developments, climate change effects on biodiversity and overall effects is being felt. This is a result of an unsustainable way in which we are living. We need better management. We need to look at sustainability infrastructure upgrades and plans. We need to factor in the tangible benefits to our lives, our agri-food sector, tourism, ecosystems, when taking decisions on planning. During the pylon energy debate, we argued that less tangible benefits, the beauty of our landscape and habitats, were not being factored into government plans to build up the power grid through Grid 25. I believe that these less tangible benefits should be factored into such projects and biodiversity in such important areas. Thank you. Well, firstly, the waste production and management. One of the questions there, well, Cork City has designated bulk good collection, which has stopped illegal dumping. That's a very positive movement forward. Local transport, the introduction of the bike sharing scheme is a positive, though it hasn't been without its problems. Walkways and local amenities. The Tremore Valley Park, there's huge investment put into that, from where it was to what it is now. In Fitzgerald Park, the reopening, post-investment, and the city walks such as Blackrock, Castle Walls and the Mardyke Walk, and of course the opening of my most famous park in Cork, Musgrave Park. I spend a lot of time down there. Also, we have to look at water, wastewater treatment and water management. Before we can consider as much as charging a cent for water within any county, within any part of Ireland, we need a water system that's fit for purpose. And we also need to look at fluoride within the water in the Irish system. It has to be looked at. The water quality is in some places housing estates. I recently visited a housing estate in County Wexford where houses were, the foot base or the base of the houses were surrounded by wire. There was 12 houses boarded up. There were people out protesting, while all the time the water was the same colour as milk. While up the road, less than 100 yards, you might have seen it in national media, they were implementing and trying to put in water meters. In 2014, this is unacceptable, and we need to clear that up. And Cork is the same as Waterford, as every county in Ireland. We need to have a water that is fit for purpose before we decide to charge. Thank you.
Well, I would have been involved with a group called Rethink Pylons, which was founded, and one of the costed benefits we brought, one of the costed reports we brought two at this stage, was the conversion of Moneypoint to a biomass plant to achieve our 40% renewable target. But to ask to bring that, in Ireland we grow softwood, and it's grown by teagasc, and it's usually used for pulping in wood such as medite, chipboard and softwoods. If we were realistic about achieving tree growth and tree cover in this country, we should be approaching farmers with bad land, asking them to grow hardwoods, moving Quailsha away from our teagasc or whoever is involved, Quailsha away from softwood into hardwoods, growing diverse forestries within this country, but getting funding from Europe to do that will give it a sustainable, environmental and friendly to this country. We need to move away from conifers. We need to move into fast-growing EU regulated and certified wood, hardwoods. We have to stop growing wood to export it out of the country, and we need to start using it within our own country. We can sustain in this country if we go with the agricultural industry, and we ask farmers, instead of would have very bad lands and terrains, use proper sustainable wood, get it EU certified, and burn it within conversion of Moneypoint to a biomass plant. We costed that to put in burners, which will be burnt out in Moneypoint, which burns 2.7 million tonnes of coal per year, American imported coal. You can burn 3 million tonnes of biomass, hardwood biomass, 45% of which can be sustained within Ireland. But to do that, we need a directive from Europe, and I will be pushing within Europe for that, to get Irish forestry growing proper hardwoods and get sustainable funding to do that. And in that conversion of Moneypoint, you then create jobs and employment within the local communities, and you entice farmers, young farmers, back into a sector that is already hard growing or hard pushed. And not just hardwood, I suppose I can't go into it, but also we need to look at the sugar beet. We are looking at sugar beet in this country as growing sugar beet for sugar. Within its burning capacity within fossil fuel, within a biomass plant, it can be used for its very high yield and very high rate of flammable. It doesn't have to be cleaned. It can be used and stored. We can regenerate our sugar beet in this country to use for a biomass plant. It can be used that sort of sections. The scrub, firstly, I think you have to, from an EU level, it needs to be changed. We can't have a situation of farmers being told to clear scrub and then it's damaging our ecosystem. Secondly, farmers should face reduction in their single farm payment if they continue to burn scrub. Very, very seriously. It is a European level directive that it comes in at, it is CAP that it comes in at. We're now in the middle of negotiations in CAP, so therefore we actually, as an MEP, will have direct powers within that to say yes or no in what way it should be. I myself will be calling for it to be stopped straight away. To go back to your question, would I be interested in taking on the vested interests of commercial? Yes, I would. I would be very interested in it. I'm involved in the Cummer against pylons and Rethink, so that in itself will give you where I'm standing. I'm an avid hill walker, so I think it is wrong that we are allowing people to burn scrub, telling them to burn scrub when we're irrespective of what our neighbours think, the danger it causes, what it does to biodiversity, what it does to our ecosystem. It has to, and especially the bird and wildlife. It has to stop. and it has to come from Europe and has to be a directive. And I believe any farmer that engages in it should be penalised through his CAP scheme. If I was elected to the European Parliament, I'd be calling immediately for any cessation of any fracking within the European. I'd try to have it outlawed and banned. It has been banned in France in 2011. It needs to be banned right across all 28 countries. It has caused movement in tectonic plates. It has caused movement in earthquakes. It has been linked to a lot of underground tables. I would immediately, if elected to a parliament, with a group, a large group such as ALDI, which Fianna Fáil would be connected with, call for it to be outlawed straight away within Europe. And I would hope that I can say categorically, fracking will never come to this country. It will never come to this country. It will never come to this country. We said pylons would never be put up across the Cumberland Mountains, and to date we've held them accountable. Fracking will never come to this country. Don't mind Pat Rabbit, I'm telling you it will never come to this country. I am telling you. There are 200,000 people. There are 200,000 people on a website called Rethink Pylons, and at the touch of a button, we will stop fracking. It will never come into this country.
Already, we've been campaigning for over 3 years in Clare. There's a campaign north and south east border, and we are united on it, and the same as Britain and Ireland fracking also. But the thing is, my concern is, I know a lot about fracking myself, right? Because I've been researching it. But you know the economic implications.
Yes.
Because if you are going to be elected to Europe, you need to know.
I know the economic. Do you know the economics? Do you know the economics of Grid 25?
And listen, I'm not concerned about Grid 25.
Well, I am.
I'm concerned about fracking. No, hang on a second. You're here as a potentially representing me. I'm here as a fracking-free Clare, a citizen, right? So
you mind me asking what part of Clare you're from?
North Clare.
No, just ask you.
The thing is that if you're going to be sitting in the Parliament in Europe, you need to know all the financial arguments, the economic arguments. You need to be well versed on them, because there are people there, and the big corporations are putting huge pressure on Europe, and the transatlantic trade agreement is part of this. So you really need to know.
I do know the
this
fracking.
inside out.
I do know, and I have also been involved with yourselves up there. Because the reason why my June Graney Scariff, you're up around that direction. I think you're up into the Burn that direction, are you? Or Tubber?
No,
You can come on up to Leitrim and to Sligo and to Fermanagh across the border.
I have been in Mayo with Martin Daly up there.
Yes,
Yeah,
well,
we've been up there. We were involved. They have been involved. We've been in contacts with you. Well, I would argue against any introduction of GM foods, and I would definitely defend our reputation as being one of the best food producers in the world. I would lobby at European level to sustain the 19 countries out of 28, I think it is now, that have lobbied against it. That is definitely majority, and it should not be allowed in if majority is ruling. What I would support the successful conclusion of the EU-US free trade agreement, which could boost the European economy by 100 billion annually. If elected, I would fight to ensure that Ireland's interests in agriculture and agri-food sector environment are defended in the negotiation in this deal. We need to take the fears of disagreement that will only benefit big corporations, and we need to look seriously at how it will affect our environment. We've heard a lot of the potential economic growth, job increases. We need to look and find print, not to rush to complete negotiations at the expense of our environment, which itself is one of Ireland's key selling points of tourism and food production. There has been a lack of transparency, which we do in the European Parliament. We need strong voices to call for full clarity and transparency. We cannot conclude negotiation while issues such as GM crops and further increases in greenhouse gases being glossed over. The European Parliament should go through all taxes in relation to this with a fine-tooth comb and not agree to conclude any negotiations unless our environment and agri-food concerns are taken into account. If elected to the European Parliament, I argue against any deal which the welfare of our citizens and its environment. It's a labelling issue, that any food within Europe that has any GM modified food or GMOs must be labelled. It should be a European directive, and it'd be something that I would push for. It has to be. We should know what we're eating.